Hello and welcome to the Galactic Court podcast. I'm Andy and I'm your host, as each week we discuss all the latest TV episodes, films, games and whatever else takes our fancy from the worlds of Star Wars, Marvel, DC and anything else nerdy and geeky in between. If this is the first time you found us, then please feel free to follow us on social media. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. I'm also on Twitch and on YouTube as well. On Twitch, I tend to game a couple of times a week doing sort of nerdy Star Wars games, and I'm going to be venturing into a few of the bits and pieces, but you can find all the links for us in the episode description. So give us a follow and make sure you're there for each new episode as it does come in. Today, we are going to be talking about Marvel's Secret Invasion Episode 2. And I'm privileged to be joined by not one, not two, but three amazing guests today, all from the same show. Their podcast is incredibly popular, and they cover everything from breakdowns and analysis to theories and predictions. Their banter together and their knowledge of their weekly subjects is what keeps their podcast constantly on the rise. So please welcome to the show from the amazingly named Why So Serious podcast, but David, JD, and Caleb.
Yeah.
Guys, welcome to the show. How are you all doing?
Wonderful.
So good. Thanks for having us.
Just amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah. Excited to be here.
It's a real privilege to have you guys on the show. You guys have got a great podcast, and I've known about you guys for a little while and started listening to you, and I've seen you appear on a couple of other podcasts that I've been lucky enough to either be listening to or appeared on myself. So I am genuinely really privileged to have you on the show. And I've never had three guests on before at the same time either. I've had two before, so to have three of you in the mix to make it sort of a good rowdy discussion, I'm really looking forward to our conversation today.
Nice.
Yes, sir.
So we're going to be discussing about Secret Invasion Episode 2 that came out yesterday. But I wanted to fire a few questions at you guys first, just to get to know you guys a little bit better, to be fair. So you guys have been doing this podcast since the start now. I mean, you've got about, 80 episodes that you've got about now that you've done. So why did you decide to start a podcast together?
Well, I was talking to, I think me and Lub and me and JD were kind of both talking over the years for a while. I know me and JD had had early talks about just a hypothetical situation. Hey, maybe one day we'll start a podcast. And I know with Lub and I pretty much had the same exact discussions, kind of just loosely though. And I think it was we've been doing it for almost a year now. So last spring, I think we kind of all were just like, should we just record? It was with Kenobi. The Kenobi series was coming out, and we're just like, let's just do it. Let's just hop on. We'll record real quick and just see how it is. It sounds like something fun. We've got plenty of useless nerd knowledge that's useful in our world here, in our heads, that we can utilize and throw out there. And it's just a blast to do. So it's like, why not? Three good friends. We've known each other for a long time. Grew up in the same town, and yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's like you have these nerd movies coming out, and it's such a unique fandom. It's kind of cultish, and it's really fun to talk about it. So it's fun to get together and nerd out about it. So we figure, why not get that creative expression out and just kind of put out a podcast, see if other people want to join the conversation with us, and just a journey of something that we love to do.
Love, what about you? What keeps you coming back every week to do a podcast with these two guys?
Definitely not these other two guys. It's the topics we talk about. No, just kidding. No, it's definitely because you just work and go home and work and go home. And it's like, I want something more. I want to have fun when I get off work and talk about the things I love. So that's what keeps me coming back, especially when a new movie or a new show or even a fun random topic we're going to talk about. I get really excited the day of, this is going to be a great time tonight.
Absolutely. So if you can each go in turn and just sort of tell me a little bit about what your nerd credentials are. What did you read or watch growing up? What are you sort of into nowadays as a more, we'll call us all mature adults, shall we? Right. I think that's the best word to describe all of us nowadays. But yeah, let's start with you, JD. What was it you were into as a kid? What is it you're into nowadays? Has your taste changed at all, or do you still sort of go down the same path?
Well, as a kid, it was definitely the animated Batman stuff I watched growing up big time. But when I really got into it is when the Iron Man came out, and then you learned that the Avengers was coming out. So at that point, we were already in high school, right out of high school. But seeing everything come together on screen with all these different characters, I think really pushed me deep into that nerd that nerd demographic. Back in the day, I also loved Lord of the Rings. It's still my favorite trilogy. But that Avengers coming out, it's still probably my favorite theater experience ever. Like watching that war when they invade with the Chitauri, Hulk smashing Loki. So after that, I really got into comics too. And I've been reading comics ever since for the past 15 years or however long it's been. And David really got me into Star Wars. So as we're, I think, like back in the era when Avengers and Avengers 2 is coming out, really pushed me into Star Wars. I was more of a casual fan there, but really got deep into Star Wars comics, movies, everything. Game of Thrones, read the Game of Thrones books, love it. So yeah, I mean, pretty much everywhere.
Covering a wide set of bases there. What about you, Lub?
I would definitely go Star Wars first. That's my first love.
Representing,
Always.
yes.
Revenge of the Sith. My favorite Star Wars movie for sure.
Yeah,
and then
get on board with that.
right, and then second would probably be Game of Thrones or Marvel. I really do like the Game of Thrones world and can't wait to see more of it in House of Dragon and the other shows that are coming out in the future.
Nice. What about you, David?
Yeah, Star Wars was probably my first just because, so I'm the youngest. I got 2 older brothers, older sister. My dad saw the first Star Wars when it came out in theaters. He was never a sci-fi fan until Star Wars, A New Hope came out, and he watched it twice in the same night in the theaters. He stuck around. He loved it so much. But yeah, my oldest brother, big book nerd. He read all the Legends books and stuff growing up. So we had all these Legends books laying around the house, and we had the, original VHS tapes of the original trilogy of Star Wars. So that was probably my first nerdy thing. And then my first own venture was Lord of the Rings, for sure. When Fellowship came out, I mean, I'd read The Hobbit as a kid already, but that was my first, me and my friends kind of real nerding out that stemmed from us. That wasn't Star Wars being passed down. And those two are pretty. I think I still put Lord of the Rings at the top of that. But yeah, Spider-Man, when that came out with Tobey Maguire, that was kind of my first introduction to Marvel, which was great. And X-Men and Spider-Man coming out. I watched that, but I never read the comics or anything like that. I watched the animated Batman and X-Men series. But until JD, he got me to read, which I didn't even remember getting him into Star Wars. So that's just beautiful. But he got me to read, what was that first comic series you got me? Do you remember?
Was it Astonishing X-Men or Batman and Robin?
I think it was Batman. I think it was Batman and Robin. So it got me into that. Then we went to Injustice, and ever since then I got hooked. And during quarantine of COVID, I was reading comics constantly, all the major runs, Secret Invasion, all that stuff. So he got me hooked to comics. I had never read a comic in my life until probably 3 or 4 years ago.
Nice.
Yeah,
I'm definitely representing on the Star Wars hill, as the listeners of my podcast know very well, as you can see behind me. Plenty of Star Wars stuff knocking around behind me. So don't hate me for this, guys. I'm personally not a huge Game of Thrones fan, simply because I've never actually got around to finishing the TV series.
How long?
I think I got to 5 or 6, maybe the end of season 5.
Oh, you got through the good stuff.
Might be a good jumping off point. Yeah.
Simply because my partner at that particular time, we used to have trade-offs on TV shows we wanted each other to watch.
Got it.
So I traded off with her to watch the Flash TV series, and she traded off for me to watch Game of Thrones. So at that time, though, I don't know why. I can't remember why I didn't get further than series 5, but I keep seeing a lot of it popping up on TikTok at the moment, so it might have to be something I pick back up and give another watch and give it another try.
Were you a fan of the Flash TV show?
I was, to be fair. I'm two series still behind on that. The last 2 series I haven't actually got around to watching yet.
Me too.
Okay.
The last thing I saw was Savitar.
Oh wow, so you're quite far behind then, to be fair.
Yeah, I liked it, but I'm not motivated to continue. I don't know.
I think I got basically up to where they did the Crisis on Infinite Earth sort of big event crossover, and then the end of Arrow. That's basically where I got to with everything else. So I don't think I've even finished off like Legends of Tomorrow. I've not finished off Flash yet. Wasn't too fussed about Supergirl, to be fair. Sort of went in and out of that one, but to be fair, I've always been an uber nerd for that kind of stuff, and I've kept track of it for quite a few years until recently. I don't know
Okay.
why I've gone off the boil a bit the last few years, but Star Wars has always been my mainstream. I'm definitely the one that everyone goes to ask any sort of knowledge about. I'm always the one
Nice.
there that's got it on the tip of my tongue. And I grew up reading comic books, to be fair, far more Marvel than I did DC. I mean, the Flash and Reverse Flash are my two favorite characters from DC, so I used to
Oh.
mainly concentrate
okay.
on their books and stories. So I know you recently did a review of the Flashpoint comic as well,
Mhm.
and I'm a huge fan of that and the animated film as well. I think we kind of view similarly on the film, sort of like maybe mid sixes in terms of
Yeah.
like a rating.
I liked it.
Yeah. Yeah, JD liked it more than us too. Me and Caleb were
Yeah, it
closer
was
to the
just-
6 and 7s, but
It was fun. Yeah.
I recently got one of those like limitless cinema passes.
Oh, yeah?
So I pay like £15 a month, which is what, like $20 or something like that, and you get unlimited cinema trips in it every single month.
They took that away from us.
Oh,
We
really?
used to have that over here. They used to have a monthly movie pass like that, but they don't offer it here anymore. At least in California, around where we are, that's not a thing anymore. Man, I'd totally sign up for it.
That's good, yeah, because I've been to see I saw The Flash twice, went to see Transformers, went to see that randomly that Jennifer Lawrence film No Hard Feelings that's just come out. So
Oh, yeah?
I was like, I want to go to the cinema. That's the only thing I haven't seen.
It's free. Yeah,
and then I went to
essentially.
see Indiana Jones yesterday as well. So
Ooh.
Well,
What'd you think?
spoiler free. I've heard some not great things. What did you think about that? I don't want to get too far off,
it's
but
a little bit better than Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
okay.
But
Okay.
it's not. I mean, I've watched all of them recently in preparation of going to it because I'm going to be reviewing the show as well. So,
Figured, okay.
but I had because I had in the original trilogy, Raiders of the Lost Ark and Last Crusade to me are the top two. I
Oh,
didn't
for sure.
actually rate Temple of Doom very highly. I thought mainly because the woman in it just screams the entire way through, and it's so annoying.
Oh my god. Well, it's so obnoxious.
But then I sort of we all know Kingdom of the Crystal Skull was sort of bottom of the list. So
Rough. Yeah.
Dial of Destiny. Where does it slot in? It's beneath the top two, but maybe above. I'd put middle of the road for me.
Okay. It's not bad.
Not bad.
So I can't wait to anything else till next week now. But yeah, it's just worth going for it. Yeah, Indiana Jones wrapping up his storyline, so it's not too bad. Yeah.
Okay.
Because we're talking MCU today, what is it for you guys that you love so much about the MCU? Because you cover obviously quite a decent amount of it on your podcast, because obviously it's popular culture nowadays. But what is it about the MCU exclusively? Not forget the comics or anything like that, but what is it just about the cinematic universe that they've created that you guys love so much?
Well, for the first few phases, I think it was the characters and how it felt like they did a good sci-fi where they fit into the real world pretty well compared to Justice League, where it's pretty fantastical. But they were characters that you could relate with depending on the character, and seeing how they interacted with each other with their flaws and how they ended up getting along, or how it led to conflict, and how they were the first ones to develop that big interconnected universe. It was a ton of fun.
Right. Yeah, I'd have to say the one thing I love is the thing that's starting to kind of screw them over, and it is the connective tissue. Like, they were the first to ever pull that off, but now it's getting so big and so wide that they're not doing the best job anymore, because it was simple before and they could pull it off, and now it's getting a little complicated.
Yep.
Yeah, it was just the interconnectedness really that was really getting me the most hyped, seeing Thor's hammer in the post credit. I mean, just like, oh my God, they're actually doing this, and they're doing it well. They're really actually connecting the Avengers, and they just did it so flawlessly, and it was so fresh. And although it's not totally grounded, yes, it's Thor. Yes, it's it's a god. It's a super soldier serum that's been frozen in ice. But it felt grounded. Like Caleb said, it's gotten so cosmic, which I don't mind. I love Guardians. I love a lot of the cosmic stories they have to tell, but it's just gotten... I'm still excited for the future. I don't want to come off too negative, but it's just gotten kind of all over the place, and I'm very over the whole multiversal phase and the time traveling and the quantum stuff. I'm ready to get back to some good old grounded Spider-Man, Daredevil, type of stuff like that. But that's what brought me in first, was just the excitement of this. It was the first thing ever done like this with movies,
Hmm. Absolutely. And obviously, we have got some grounded stories coming up because there's going to be more Spider-Man. We're getting things like Echo and Daredevil, which obviously we're getting the Punisher in as well, which I'm super excited for because I'm a huge Punisher fan. You guys obviously won't know this, but on my stomach, I've got a tattoo of the Punisher done as a Sith Lord.
No way.
It's kind of like my Marvel Star Wars crossover. I had a dream basically one night that the Punisher was a Sith Lord. He was hunting down Jedi, and he like decapitated Luke Skywalker. And I woke up and just went to there was like a local tattoo shop that did really geeky tattoos, and I just said to explain it to this guy. He drew it up. We got it tattooed on my stomach. So
That's
very
awesome.
random, but yeah, I've got a lot of love for the Punisher, and sort of I really love the anti-heroes myself. So I agree with you in terms of the time travel element. I'm sort of done with that. There's too many sort of bad things that can be done with that. But I am loving the multiversal side of things. Not in terms of they're going to bring back random characters that have already died off, in terms of just to see like Robert Downey Jr. on screen again. If they did that, it would just be that's just doing it for sentimental sake. There's not going to really add anything to it, and it's going to be cheapen the sacrifice I think that they made with Iron Man anyway. But I do love the whole multiversal side of things. Loki was, I think, I had him at number 2 on my MCU Phase 4 ranking list. Because setting off the whole multiverse and the way that it can go, I'm really excited to see that, especially when we've got Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars coming up.
Agreed. I agree with that. I think we all loved Loki. And I I guess we'll see. It's just the I'm ready for groundedness, but I can see why you like that, and I love the setup of Loki and Kang, and No Way Home is my favorite Spider-Man movie, so maybe it was nostalgia and whatever the case, but the multiverse has brought us some amazing stuff, and it's still going to with Secret Wars, but I'm definitely ready for a balance.
Yeah, Across the Spider-Verse and Into the Spider-Verse showed that multiverse stuff can be done really well. Just Marvel seems to kind of lack in the storytelling and the emotional connection with the audience there.
Everyone talks. Sorry, carry on.
So I had a question. You're a huge Punisher fan. Have you read the Garth Ennis run?
I have indeed, yes.
That's a good one. Really good one.
One of the most famous Punisher runs as well, isn't it? So it is I think that's a very well-loved Punisher run.
Yeah, they didn't pull any punches.
I probably one of my favourite Punisher comics, to be fair, if we're just going to dive into that for a moment, is sort of the alternate universe one they did, where they did the little series of someone kills the Marvel Universe. And they did like a Deadpool one, and they did Punisher kills the Marvel Universe. I don't know if you guys have ever read that, but it was just like a one-off, like Ultimate Universe type thing, where basically, he has the story of when he's in the park with his family and they get killed when there's sort of a war going on between, I think it's some of the different superheroes, like maybe the X-Men, and I can't remember off the top of my head name. Maybe it was the Skrulls as well, to be fair. And his family get caught in the crossfire, and he decides that all superheroes have to go. There isn't a single one that can be left alive. And he basically spends like the next 50 years going through various different scenarios where he just basically kills off all the superheroes. And the very first one he kills off is Spider-Man. He doesn't give any of them any explanation at all. He basically found Spider-Man in a sewer, beat the crap out of him, and then just points a gun in his face. And Spider-Man's like, "Why are you doing this?" And he doesn't even answer him; just pulls the trigger. Boom!
Oh
no! That's so sad.
He goes through this years of and he gets caught by the police and put in prison. But then he's broken out by a consortium that wants to help him achieve his goal. And he basically manages to lure almost all different superheroes and supervillains to the moon, and then nukes them all and kills them all.
Oh my god!
And basically, the last one that's left is Daredevil, and he doesn't know that Matt Murdock is Daredevil. And in outside of superheroes, Matt Murdock is his best friend in real life, and his lawyer as well. And they basically come they're having a final showdown fight. And they're having that sort of moral talk that we've seen them have. And we saw them having the Netflix series as well. And he's like, I don't care, all superheroes have to go. And he's reveals right at the end that he's Matt Murdock. And the Punisher's like, I'm really sorry, but it doesn't matter. Kills him. And then he's like, and then they're like, okay, so you've killed every superhero, supervillain in the universe. And he's like, nope, there's one person left. Turns the gun on himself, kills himself. And that's the end of the comic. Sorry, I've just spoiled the entire thing for you. But even
That's
just the
insane.
impactness of it, it's just like I said, it's just a one-off alternate universe story that they did, and they did one for Deadpool as well. Deadpool kills the Marvel universe, which was a bit more of a comedic one. But if you want a hard-hitting comic book to read, find that one and just give it a read.
Jump to the top of the list.
Just blew my mind. That was a roller coaster in itself listening to that. Like,
but yeah, I mean, definitely worth a read. As like a one-off. But if you like the Punisher series, he's just kicking ass in that one. So he just doesn't take anything from anyone. Just he's like, I'm done with you all. See you later.
Damn, mark that down.
How's he kill
jumping
Thor?
Jumping back into our subject of the week then. Before we properly dive into the episode and have a chat about it, obviously we've been promised by Marvel that there is going to be a big reveal that someone big in the MCU has been a Skrull for quite some time. I chatted last week in the opening episode that I think a lot of people are pinning Rhodey to be the one that's going to be the big Skrull reveal. I think that's a bit of a red herring, personally. I think it's too obvious that they're going to do Rhodey because he's been put into this series. But what are you guys thinking? Who are you sort of pinning down as being the big Skrull reveal? Caleb, let's go with you first. Who are you thinking?
I kind of agree with the Rhodey thing now because I want to see someone who was a Skrull, who's been a Skrull for a long time. And Rhodey had to be Rhodey at Endgame. There's the Tony funeral and all that. If that wasn't him, that's going to be pretty messed up, Rhodey wasn't there for Tony dying. It's hard to say, like, the big Skrull reveal. I think the president is a Skrull, like we talked about in the episode 1. I think the president. I don't think Nick Fury is one.
No.
I was kind of thinking maybe someone from the Marvels movie could be a Skrull. Trying to tie that in with this and Captain Marvel 1.
Interesting theory. JD, what about you?
So I thought Rhodey because it seemed like he was way too happy to fire Nick Fury, like it was personal, and he enjoyed doing that. But then again, it might be the red herring thing. It seems too obvious because it was clear. It seemed way out of character. I think Val, Ross's wife, she's controlling. She's going to have a lot of control of a lot of superheroes. I think damage control, we saw the DNA of all those different things. Damage control is obviously going into Stark Tower and cleaning up every superhero fight mess. And I think that's the Skrulls are collecting DNA through damage control. And we saw that she's the prime minister of the UK and the other big positions. So nothing's off the table, but nothing would be that, like, who else is even in the show? So we don't even know who's going to show up. I wouldn't want a cameo just to show that they're a Skrull, because then that would just be confusing. Like, okay, are they a Skrull from the last day or two, or have they been a Skrull this whole time? So, and we haven't seen Val in the show yet. There's probably a lot more characters we have yet to see. But I think damage control will be a big reveal, and Val.
Nice. I like those shots. What about you, David?
Well, I think Rhodey is a Skrull, but I don't think that's the main one they're talking about. And I'll just say real quick, he called Fury Nick in this episode, and that's been the main giveaway every time. Everybody calls me Fury, not Nick, not Nicholas, not Nicholas J. It's Fury, and in the episode he called him Nick. So immediately I was like, that's a Skrull. But I think Val will be his too. But as far as major reveals go, so they said this. Did they specify that this was going to be in the show, or did just in general one of our MCU characters from over time is going to be revealed at some point?
I think they said it will be revealed in the show that someone big in the MCU has been a Skrull for quite a while.
Okay,
I'm going off the top of my head with my memory there, but
right.
What if it's Wong? Sorry, Dave.
Yeah,
Wong.
No, it's not a bad one.
He has been appearing in every show since Phase 4.
That's what I'm saying. No one else would be surprising.
Randomly.
Yeah,
right. Well, also with the Rhodey thing, by the way, it would make too much sense because, as we know, Rhodey was played by a different-looking actor in Iron Man 1, and then it was a different-looking guy for Iron Man 2, so he did shapeshift. He did shapeshift a bit.
He forgot what clothes to put on. Yeah, whatever his name is in Iron Man 1.
Oh,
I
can't remember it. No, why can't I remember his name now?
Terrence
Howard. There you go.
Terrence Howard. Yeah, he just comes
Lawrence
back
could
for
show up
episode
too.
3.
I guess I'll just stick with the boring thing. I think it's for sure Rhodey. I don't know who else other than Rhodey and Val.
I've developed a theory over the last few days that randomly popped into my head, and it's been sort of churning around in there. But this whole thing about potentially someone from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. TV show, obviously mainly Quake, coming in to the show because Marvel put on sort of like the Road to Secret Invasion things that you need to watch. They put Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. on their list on Disney Plus. So you need to watch this before Secret Invasion. So that brought the whole debate back in of how canon is Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. because it started off as canon, it then veered off and it wasn't canon, and now they bring it back into the fold. And it's been heavily rumoured that Quake and Daisy Johnson is going to be appearing in this TV show somewhere because she's got a connection to the Kree. And so then why not obviously connect that to the Skrulls as well? So maybe she shows up and it's going to sort of give everyone a big thrill because they brought this character, whether it's the canon version of or the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. version that we know, but the same actress playing her, bringing her in, but she's a Skrull.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know why that's just popped into my head.
Well, it's a big theory running around
that Daisy's coming back. As Quake.
But would you guys be surprised? Well, they said it wasn't for a second, but I'm just saying, would you guys be surprised? Because there's not a ton of connection to that character with the general audience. I feel like if she came back, it would just be like okay. And then if she's a Skrull, boom. Okay, yeah, I mean, I guess she's a Skrull. You know what I mean? I don't think it would have a big impact.
It wouldn't surprise me if they changed her to be a mutant rather than an Inhuman.
That would make sense.
Because they're not really having too much of the Inhumans in the MCU at the moment, because they kind of laid them to rest, it seems, within the MCU.
Feige doesn't like those.
Yeah, no, but I mean, she was, if you did watch Agents, she was, by the end of it, she was the focal point. I mean, really, it was surrounding her throughout it and watching her evolve and, adapt to her powers and get stronger and stronger and all that stuff. But I would be down for it if it's done. Because again, the budget dropped on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Winter Soldier's entire deal with S.H.I.E.L.D. becoming Hydra kind of ruined the entire path that show was taking because S.H.I.E.L.D. is no longer. And that happened, season 2, I believe. So
season 1, actually. It was halfway through season one. But is that not what kicked off the show into being good, though? Because up until then, it was basically like your typical villain of the week thing. They're sort of building up as a team together. They're not quite there yet. And then, boom, Hydra happens in the Winter Soldier. Yeah. They connected it really well to that TV series.
That's true.
And what kicked off the show into sort of pushing on to another level.
Yeah, it forced them to actually write a story, like for this season, rather than, like you said, the villain of the week, just cameos and Easter eggs here and there, but kind of all separated. So, yeah, that's fair.
Well, I think my theory maybe falls down on her being a Skrull, because if she's going to jump onto the screen and make an appearance in the MCU, they're going to want her to have her powers, and she won't have her powers if she's a Skrull. So my theory maybe falls down there, but it was just something that popped into my head is like, are they going to introduce her, but she's going to be a Skrull, and maybe at the end of the series or the last episode, she's freed from Skrull control and kicks ass, and who knows? But
yeah, I like it. I think all three of us said Rhodey at one point, so at least you're throwing out an alternate theory.
We'll talk a bit more about Rhodey later on because he's got some obviously interesting scenes with Fury in this. But let's start at the beginning of the episode. So we start off with a flashback to 1997, a couple of years after the events of Captain Marvel. We've got Vara introducing Fury to a young Gravik. And Fury and Talos are doing their sort of pitch to the rest of the Skrulls that we're going to do our best along with Carol Danvers to find you a new home, but in the meantime I need your help here. It's going to mean that you're going to have to take the faces of humans for the time being to blend in, but you do me a favor, I'll do you a favor. And interestingly, pretty much Gravik was one of the only ones to not turn into a human during this scene, sort of maybe pitting early on that he didn't really trust Fury or didn't trust what they were saying to him. But I like the fact that we had a sort of flashback at the start. What are you guys thinking about the start to this episode?
I loved it. I thought it was great. I liked because I'm in the middle of a rewatch of Captain Marvel anyways. So then we saw young Samuel L. Jackson, again Nick Fury. I loved it, but my favorite part of this whole scene was Talos, man. His speech about Fury, it set up so much of their relationship just in this quick flashback scene of how much he truly trusts Fury. Like, he's willing to bring the survival of his species over here and tells them it's because of this man right here. And it's like, damn, their relationship is stronger than I thought it was. It's more deep, and I feel like it's going to set up even more heartbreak by the end of the season with that kind of setup. But I love that they're really taking the time to set up emotional stakes and stuff like that with this scene. So I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it really worked when they zoomed into Gravik's young face and then turned into the present day when Gravik is here in the middle of all these explosions and kind of the effect that had from a very young age and what it turned into. So that worked really well. Gravik's becoming a good villain.
Yeah.
Definitely got an edge to him, isn't he? So
Yeah.
Great setup for his character, because I was talking about after episode 1, I like him so far, but he needs some more backstory.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So then we obviously get the opening sequence. Just quickly, where do you guys stand on the whole fact that there's this like AI designed sort of opening credits? Where are you guys falling on this supposed controversy of people not being happy about it?
I'm neutral.
I'm not a fan.
Yeah.
Okay. I skipped it this episode. I skipped the intro.
I skipped it as well.
I skipped it too,
It's different every time, though, right?
It is different every time.
And it does tell a story.
Exactly. That's the point I was going to bring up, is it does tell you about things that either happened towards the end of the last episode or things that they're describing in the new episode. Like when Fury, we're going to get onto it in a second, but when Talos and Fury on the train, he's talking about the Skrulls that left the planet after being decimated by the Kree. You sort of get a little AI shot of this, of a planet with a load of ships leaving it, and sort of then it sort of morphs into Earth that's then like half green, half the planet it normally is. So whether it's AI designed or what's going on with it for sort of the rest of the episodes, it's still interesting because it's telling part of a story or telling us stuff that's going to be coming up in the episode. So it could be giving hints to what's going on, which I think is quite interesting because not a lot of title sequences tend to do that.
Yeah. I'm pretty indifferent to it, but it's kind of bad timing in the middle of this writer's strike to have like, an AI intro when there's people out there trying to fight against AI taking their jobs. And they're like, oh, well, we got this intro by AI.
I wonder if that's why they did it. They just needed to come up with something quick because of the writer strike.
Well, I heard it wasn't purely AI. They hired VFX artists to work around the AI that the AI created. So they actually did hire people for it, but also used AI. I'll check it out for, that was a good sales point. Game of Thrones actually does that towards the later seasons, and I really enjoy that. I think, and these guys would probably agree, I'm just kind of over the top anti-AI, so that's probably it's probably going to be something that I just immediately pull out of, but that does intrigue me, so now I'm probably going to have to watch them.
I think as well they said last week that it was partly to sort of give this feeling that the Skrulls are different to humans, and they're sort of taking over and sort of doing everything behind the scenes, and that was the whole idea of having an AI do it as well, that's different to humans doing it. It's going to be a different thought, so intriguing reasons behind it, but I think I think a lot of people agreed in the middle of a writer's strike, maybe not the best thing, even if they still hired other people to flesh out the credits still. So
right.
But then we get past that and we get onto this sort of this scene where you've got Talos and Fury are on the train escaping, obviously, what's happened in Moscow. And Fury gives us this sort of long-winded speech, which has been likened to his speech to Captain America in The Winter Soldier when they're in the lift going down. He's like, my granddad used to carry a gun in his bag and he didn't like people, didn't trust them. And he tells us a story of when he was a kid and having to sit in segregation on the train. But, his mum used to play this game and it was telling me something I don't know. And she basically used to use this as a way that if he told sort of like an outrageous lie, she knew that there was a bigger lie hiding behind that. And he uses this to get some answers out of Talos in terms of what happened with the Skrull War and where did those Skrulls go. And Talos admits, a million of them came to Earth basically behind Fury's back. He didn't tell him about it. And they have a bit of an argument, and he basically tells him to sling his hook. This was an interesting conversation to learn a bit more about, obviously, the fact there's a lot more Skrulls around than we thought there were.
Right.
Oh my god.
Is this putting a wedge between their friendship now? Because Fury was pretty pissed off, wasn't he? So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
That scene was.
Yeah, go for it.
You got it. That scene was so good, dude. The emotion behind it. And you could understand each of their sides. Like Talos, they all need a home. And Nick Fury knows that humanity can't even get along with each other. Another species comes down is just going to add fuel to the fire. So, they just displayed it so well. That was a great scene.
Dude, I probably have the most to say about this scene specifically because there was so much stuff in it. Not only the fact of that callback to the Winter Soldier and everything, but he finds out there's a million Skrulls, which is pretty crazy, and he says humans can't even coexist with each other. You can't bring them here, which at first it's like, he's not wrong. Like, he's 100% not wrong. And then I started thinking more about that and was like, well, it kind of gets back. Now, obviously, the Skrulls don't just look different. They are also dangerous because of the abilities they have. But they were fine with letting the Asgardians come to Earth. That didn't seem to be a problem. Those are aliens too. And they gave them an entire new Asgardian. And now, so it's almost kind of like, it seems like it's kind of nodding at, bits of racism and xenophobia and stuff like that, to where the Skrulls are like, no, you can't live here with us, even though they let the Asgardians come in. So I kind of thought about that after the episode, thinking like, well, there's already aliens here. But the Asgardians can't shapeshift, obviously. So it's slightly different, but I thought that was interesting. But the main thing, real quick, is Talos says, you've been using us. You've been using us as your spies and your errand boys. And it clicked, holy shit. This is why Fury is the greatest spy in the world. This is why everybody is so afraid of him. And like, Fury knows everything. He knows every single thing. Because the man has had shapeshifters working for him since the 90s, infiltrating governments, infiltrating everything. And it just clicked like, that's why. Skrulls in the MCU are the reason why really Fury is the greatest spy in the world.
Yeah, I'm definitely Team Talos. Like, just after what you just said. And Fury's had 30 years to try and find them a home. He's on this giant space station. He could travel around the galaxy. I mean, he could have asked the Guardians of the Galaxy to help him out. Anything. There's a planet out there that the Skrulls can live on easily.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess he hasn't. Yeah, like, put him on nowhere.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It just seems like he hasn't been keeping up his end of the bargain. Like, he's been focusing on the Avengers and Earth and kind of not putting the Skrulls to the back seat. Like, that when the time comes, I'll take care of them, but it's not my first priority.
Does it maybe raise an interesting point that if he's had all these shapeshifters for 30 odd years that have been obviously building up his network and obviously helped presumably build up S.H.I.E.L.D. as well, is it to then his detriment or is it maybe just because we're sort of having to rewrite things as we're going through the MCU because of this interconnectivity that Hydra wasn't found out earlier? Because if he's got a bunch of shape-shifting spies, how did they not find out about Hydra before?
Oh, whoa. Yeah.
Great point.
You're not supposed to think that deep in, okay?
I'm just ruining it by...
Great point.
Yeah.
That's a very great point.
Well, and thinking about that too, it goes back to your question about the major reveal of somebody we've known for a long time will be revealed as a Skrull. Well, Fury did start the Avengers, and if he already had access to the Skrull, Hawkeye, Clint Barton, Skrull, calling it now. Calling it now.
Natasha's alive. She was a Skrull the whole time.
I would have said her, but she didn't change green when she landed on the ground. Yeah.
That would have been crazy.
That would have been, right?
That would have kicked off some theories as they just showed her there and it was all just green and she turned into a Skrull at that moment. Damn, yeah, that would have been terrible to be fair. But
hey, I wanted to ask anybody who's read the comics. Talos mentions Emperor Drogus. Is that I don't recall that name. He was probably in the Secret Invasion comics. I just can't recall what that was. Okay, so he was a main character in Secret Invasion
I wouldn't
comics.
call him a main character, but there was that Dr. Droge, or like it was a super similar spelling, but he was the dude who was like in charge of experimenting on all the powered people. Yeah. So he was just a doctor in the comics though. So apparently he's Emperor. They could play that well, but yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's interesting that they call him an emperor and they said that he's got his own colony. So, and we'll get onto it later on about the fact that Gravik is obviously then made like the war general. So even though they're sort of like a disbanded race and there's not that many of them left really throughout the universe, they seem to be still sticking to their sort of hierarchy of how they do things. They haven't completely folded and anything like that. So it's interesting for them in terms of what that guy, if that's really going to have any meaning, or it was just a throwaway name to link maybe a bit of this comic story to obviously the TV series, even though they're not really going to be too similar.
Well, yeah. I wonder if there's a big bad that Gravik is working under, so they would have their emperor to have us, that overarching big bad.
Yeah,
that is the only other possibility of really mentioning the name in there and throwing that connection in there, outside of just being a nice little Easter egg. So it'd be interesting to see where that goes in the future.
Yeah.
But then in this episode, obviously the emotional hits keep on coming, because next we end up and see Maria Hill's body is now in London, and it's going to be shipped back to America. And Fury gets basically berated by Maria Hill's mum, in the fact that, she would follow him to the gates of hell if he asked, and that sort of really seems to hit Nick Fury in the heart a little bit. So the emotional sort of baggage that he's probably carrying around from this, and anyone that's listened to my podcast always knows I have a bone to pick with the fact that not enough people are killed off in the MCU, really.
Yeah.
And the fact that anyone that is killed off has to have a sort of big emotional death scene, or the way that they're killed off has to be for like a big one for the cause, or they're a martyr for the cause. I love the fact that, one, we got a decent character killed off in the first episode. Two, they stuck with it, as we now know. In this episode, everyone was like, "Is she dead? Is she not dead?" Yep, we know that she's definitely dead. But three, it was kind of a thankless death. She wasn't going out saving anybody in a big way. She wasn't doing anything to sacrifice. She just got shot by a bad guy. And to me, that's something that the MCU was sorely missed for a long time. It was one of my big gripes about the ending of Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Like, no one was killed off when we were expecting people to kill me. Everything was wrapped up in a tidy little bow.
Yeah.
So to have someone that is of significance, for the most part, to the MCU, killed off in a way that doesn't really mean anything. They were just killed by a bad guy, at that time. So do you think that's hitting Nick Fury worse, is the fact that she hasn't really, in his eyes, while she's doing stuff for the cause and helping him, she's died for nothing in the end, because it was a guy that was trying to hurt him and not her.
Oh yeah. That has to mess you up. Like, that has to. It's not only survivor's remorse, it's your fault. Like, it's not just you survived and they didn't. It was directly caused because of you. I like Maria Hill, so it's a bummer, losing her. But for that reason, it was like, good. This show is doing it. This is what we wanted. It's bringing back that gritty vibe, that Winter Soldier vibe, and there's stakes to it. More important than anything, we have stakes. I agree with you on the Guardians thing. Multiple fake out deaths. It kind of, was like, just do one of them. So yeah, that was refreshing, as horrible as that sounds.
Yeah, Nick Fury needs a death to avenge, right? That's going to set him on his path to redemption and figuring the Skrull conflict out. And I've always considered Maria Hill such a good, expendable character. Like, she's always been great, but she's definitely there, doesn't serve enough of a purpose where she can't die away. I thought she was going to be the main Skrull. I've always thought she was going to be a Skrull. But it's kind of similar. If she's a Skrull, it's kind of similar to just kill her off. Like, just bring an emotional tie. A death always gets the fire under your butt, right?
Caleb, any thoughts on pointless deaths in the MCU, or do you like a big passionate death?
Well, the big passionate ones always get to me. Always get a little, teary-eyed. But I do agree with what you're saying, where nothing seems permanent anymore. Like, in Secret Wars, we're going to see probably some people that have died before. They're going to come back for that movie. Hopefully Tony Stark, so I can stay on the podcast.
Love's out of here if he doesn't make a return. He put it on the line. Nobody forced him to.
But it really, to take it to the scene, it really seemed like a kind of throwaway scene at first, but it was a great hype speech by this, Maria Hill's mom, saying like he says, "I'm sorry I couldn't protect her," and he's like pretty upset about it, and then she doesn't even be like, "It's all right," but she just goes off on him, which everyone has been kind of doing to Nick the first the first two episodes.
Scroll.
Yeah. Yeah, Fury has to come back after this now. Like, he has to make this death mean something, like what she said.
I liken it to the scene in Civil War when Tony does the speech at MIT, and then he's in the corridor and he's approached by that woman who she's like, "My son died in Sokovia, crushed under a building that you guys exploded." To me, it's very much like that, and it's pinning something on the heroes and making them accountable for the deaths around them. And that they then have to feel that, and they have to go and change something about that to be able to do it, which is, in the end, the motivation for Tony backing the Savior Accords to make the Avengers accountable, isn't it? So,
but he does go immediately recruit a 16-year-old.
Yeah. Well, it's 15 really, isn't he? That one, so it's even worse. Hey, I just killed a kid in Sokovia. Hey, younger kid, why don't you come over with me?
Hey, join the squad.
You too can be killed just like this guy. But we get on then to a really, really interesting scene that reveals a bit more about the Skrull. So we have, obviously, Gaia takes Gravik to the meeting of the Skrull Council. As we know, we've got these sort of the British Prime Minister there, the NATO Secretary General. Shooter McGavin is there, for anyone that knows that reference.
Yes.
Green
and
jacket,
the
Fox
gold
News
jacket.
guy.
and the two unknowns are sort of like, I think, the Indian lady and I don't want to pin a race on him because I don't know where he specifically was supposed to be representing, but the Asian guy that was there as well.
Oh, yeah.
He does have a name. I didn't have it right in my notes, unfortunately, in terms of what his character's called, but he doesn't really speak. We don't know anything about him.
Right.
But, this is an interesting scene where the NATO guy is getting a bit too big for his boots. He's like, I'm the leader of NATO. I can have 1 million troops here. And he's like just throat jabbed into silence, pretty much. And they basically, stage the British Prime Minister and Gravik stage a coup, and they basically vote him in as the war general now, so in charge of the Skrull efforts and what they're doing on Earth. This was really interesting. Like I said, we get to know a bit more about the Skrull Council and what they're up to and some of the people that obviously they're taking over. I've agreed with what was been said in my episode last week and what one of you mentioned here about the president of the USA being a Skrull as well, because that ties in with obviously what they're doing. But I wanted to ask you guys an interesting point here. So we learn in episode 1 that Talos was part of the council before he got kicked out. So does Talos know the extent of what the other Skrulls have been doing to take over leadership roles on Earth? Was he in him as part of this, but he was just not taking it down the route that Gravik was going in terms of waging a war against Earth? So does that bring into question Talos's enterprise here of what he's been doing? Because did he know that all these important people were taken over by Skrulls already?
That's a great question. Because if he did know, that's, kind of pushes him more villain. But I don't think he does. He seems like such a genuinely good dude. I think he's going to stay a good dude. And I don't think he knew about how deep it goes. But then again, I don't know. I will say, though, that seeing Gravik walk into that and realizing that the Skrulls have infiltrated so deep that there's a prime minister and a director of
NATO.
the NATO and all that, that was a big relief for me, because I was wondering if it goes as far back as the Civil War, if they were the ones behind, like in the comics, they were the ones behind the Sokovia Accords, writing that legislation and pushing that into effect. So we still don't know how deep it goes, but they became a prime minister, and who knows what else. So
No, I bet this all started with the opening scene of this episode, and Fury and Talos were behind it, and they did set this up, and now it's gotten out of hand where they can't control it anymore. But they do know these people because it all started back in the 90s. It's going to take a while to build yourself up to those roles. So I do think they were involved with this at some point, but not anymore, obviously.
I don't know if Fury was ever maybe he created the council, but I don't think Fury would have ever been a part of the actual plan to infiltrate the world, bring 1 million Skrulls here and start making it their own home. I do think, though, that Talos maybe he not that he was a part of the plan. Maybe he did know, though, and it's kind of the deal where, look, he doesn't want his people dying, and he doesn't want Earth's people dying. Talos doesn't, he treats Fury like a brother, but he doesn't want his own people to die either. So I feel like it's probably he found out about what the council was truly planning on doing and voted on, and he probably stuck around to try and be able to, aim or deflect, try to kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Stop, essentially, what their plan was doing by staying on the inside, by having some power, maybe rising so he can make the final call and stop this from happening. But he didn't want Fury to know, because he wouldn't want the Americans and the world to, cause an all-out war with the Skrulls. And so maybe he was playing peacekeeper. Maybe he knew, but he was just trying his hardest to try and squash it before anything got too out of hand. And now he's off the council. Gravik's taken over. By the way, Kingsley Benadir, I believe is his last name, the guy who portrays Gravik. Hell of a scene. I loved this scene. I loved his emotional takeover. The dude is winning me over with his on-screen charisma. But this scene was just awesome. And like you said, JD, we really find out they have their claws in everything. They're in every part of the world, and that's really what it was showing, was how diverse they've spread themselves out throughout the world and have infiltrated all these places of power. So this whole scene was awesome.
So it was a it was a big reveal that we found out that there's a million scrolls and they were playing the game. Like, tell me something I don't know about the situation. So that's probably another level deeper. If Talos does know, that game can keep being
Right.
played, and he's going to tell him more that he doesn't know, and Nick Fury's going to have to,
Right.
be Nick Fury
Agreed.
again.
I think the problem is now, though, is that with all these scrolls that have been around on Earth for so long, is how far back can you go with revealing people who've been scrolls? For example, if they've got this council with world leaders, as we're presuming the other two that are at the table that we don't really know are, in positions of power themselves, can you then take that to, say, the World Security Council when SHIELD was still around? Did they put scrolls? As he said, if Fury was involved in getting influence over countries and regions with SHIELD, did he then get scrolls to get into positions of power or imitate people in positions of power and take over them? And therefore, the World Security Council of SHIELD was basically the scrolls, and it was his way of being able to keep tabs on the world. How far back can we go now with scrolls being involved?
No, seriously, it opens up so many cans of worms. Even with Everett Ross dying last episode, was he a scroll the whole time, or did he just, which I think it was a recent change, but still, we don't know really. It brings up so many questions when these things get exposed. Do you have something on that?
Well, it was just a theory that I read about after last week's episode. That people said that the scene where at the end of Wakanda Forever, where he's broken out of the transport, for some reason her name is escaping me. The Wakanda general woman.
Okoye.
I don't know why her name would escape me. But basically, they're revealing her that the theory is that she was actually a Skrull at that moment, and she was breaking him out to take him to the Skrulls where they could then replicate him and take over his place.
Holy crap!
Because that's then because him being in Civil War and the two Black Panther films is the proper Everett Ross, but then at the end of the film he's taken by Okoye, who is a Skrull or is imitating Okoye anyway, to be able to take him to New Skrullos, put him into those chambers where they can take over his position, and so it's just been a recent change. But that was a theory that I read after last week's episode.
I like that.
Now I got to think of every rescue mission.
That makes me wonder. The only thing is the Wakandan technology is so solid, and their senses are on point and stuff. That might make Wakanda look kind of weak if a Skrull can actually infiltrate Wakanda of all places. How do they even get in? But then again, maybe the Skrulls are just that formidable.
They never got in though, because Everett was.
Where was he? He wasn't in Wakanda, was he?
Yeah,
No,
he was in America. He was in the US.
It was a Skrull.
Okay. Well, you can imitate her without infiltrating Wakanda itself.
Right.
Like, she came over to the States and she was in, I don't know how close you have to be up, but they because in Captain Marvel, they took people's identities just seeing them on the beach for a quick second. They just didn't have as detailed as memories as they now have, because they're doing that whole process where they're, hooking them up to the brain machine, but they still were able to imitate somebody just by seeing them real quick.
But let's move on with the episode. So I'm going to cut a little bit out because I'm going to combine it into one in a moment. But we'll go to Rhodey being called before this summit of world leaders. He's got this funny bit where you've got that woman from Slovakia that keeps sort of like at his answers, and he's like, "I'm going to carpet bomb these bastards in a minute. I'm telling you now."
That was kind of Skrullish.
That was one of the funniest MCU lines.
It was
to
so
me.
funny.
I was laughing. I was watching that in my hotel room alone last night, and I was laughing my ass off. I swear, if Slovakia rolls its eyes at me one more time, I'm putting on the suit.
And even when he comes out, he's on the phone to Fury, and he's like, "Is it Croatia being snarky?" He's like, "No, Slovakia." He's like, "Well, carpet bomb them then." So they've all got the same thought. But he's obviously called before the summit. And he's basically saying that it's all allegations. You've got no actual proof, especially if it's Russia coming forward with this. They can't be trusted anyway. And then obviously he has to chat with Fury, and they go and meet up, and they have quite an emotional chat between the two of them as well. So this episode is full of sort of emotional sort of chats between Fury and other people.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously it's basically Rhodey is essentially going, "Look, man, I'm not going to be able to help you out on this one. You're on your own. You seem to disappear for years and go and sit on a space station. We gave you that project, but right now you're out the door because you're the main suspect in a bombing that's perpetrated supposedly by Americans. You are on your own now, and I'm not going to help you." And Nick did deliver this good line when he's walking out. He's like, "Even when I'm out, I'm in," which kind of like maybe is signaling the return of the Nick Fury of old that we know, that's going to roll his sleeves up and get what needs to be done. But the question here is, based on this whole this whole theory that Rhodey is going to be a Skrull is how Rhodey acted throughout the summit and then in the conversation with Nick, not the Rhodey that we remember him to be.
It's
really
really
this
not.
is a Rhodey that in Infinity War, when Captain America, Black Widow, and Scarlet Witch and Vision all turn up at the compound after years of being chased by world governments. He's told by Ross to arrest them. He's like, "Yeah, on it." Cancels the call and then just lets them be. Doesn't do anything. He's always been on that the side of the superheroes and stuff. But this is a different Rhodey now that we're seeing here. Do you reckon this is just he's been worn down after everything that's gone on and he's just like, look, I'm just protecting my country now. That's all I can do. Or is this a Skrull Rhodey being a bit different?
I think the line that really made me believe he was a Skrull when he said he volunteered to do this. Like, they didn't even ask him to, he wanted to, which seems so out of character for him. Maybe he's kind of been jealous of Fury kind of running the Avengers the whole time and him kind of being in the background. I don't know, but that doesn't seem like him.
I mean, Tony didn't really like Fury. Tony was sick of Fury in Avengers. He calls him out for lying. He hacks their system, calls him out. He always kind of had an issue with Fury, and Rhodey never really worked under Fury because Fury was kind of out. Even Age of Ultron, Fury wasn't the one leading them. He came out of nowhere, out of retirement, and brought a SHIELD helicarrier. But so much, I took it as maybe he's always just kind of been annoyed at Fury. But I still think he's a Skrull. I didn't take that so much for the reason to be that was the way he was acting. It kind of, I thought maybe, Tony's dead. The snap has happened. All this crap is going on, and he's just kind of fed up and exhausted and trying to hold everything together as much as he can. But again, it's weird because then I remember, I still think he's a Skrull though. So I don't know. It's confusing.
There was a pretty funny line too. If Hydra was a bunch of green guys that could shapeshift into your daddy. And Rhodey's known about it for 15 years, which is also around the time Terrence Howard shapeshifted into Don Cheadle.
That's not his
Well, it's a little bit later than that, but
Martin Lawrence.
Obviously, still could have been on there. Not Martin Lawrence. JD, what were you thinking about this particular chat between Nick and Rhodey?
So if let's see, if Nick, so if he's not a Skrull, I could see him being in character because Fury's been gone so long, and like Dave said in our episode before in our pilot review, he said he's a liability at this point. So not only did you just disappear, I don't even know who you are anymore. You've been gone this whole time. Now you're coming here and all of a sudden Maria Hill dies. And now you're telling me there's people that might be my security detail. I can't trust them. So he's just like, dude, I don't even know who you are. Why are you bringing all this stuff on my plate? I got enough. So maybe he is super just fed up and he's not out of character. He's just pissed and he doesn't care about Fury, who's been gone for so long.
I think for me, what slightly confuses it is that in episode 1, when we see Rhodey chatting with the president and he tells them they're out of contact with Maria and Fury, the president basically orders them to go and get them. He's like, go and get them. Find out where they are, go and get them, bring them back. And then in this episode, he's basically like, we're not going to help you. We're actually firing you from the job that you had with us, technically up on the space station. So it's seems to go from one end to the other. I'm not sure what to make of that, to be fair, or whether Rhodey was just maybe sort of having a bit of a dig at Nick, and he's like, "I'm happy to fire you." But in previous episode, there's maybe this is why Rhodey isn't a Skrull, because the president, if he is telling him to find Fury and bring him in. But then in this episode, Rhodey's like, "I'm going to cut you loose and let you go." This is his way of telling him to go and fight the battle himself, because he can't bring him in.
That's a theory. That's not a bad theory right there. That actually, that could work out too. Because I think the president's a Skrull for sure. So, okay. Hey, real quick, in this scene, was this the one where Fury brought up the Avengers and why he didn't call them in?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, so he says that he can't call the Avengers in because the Skrulls could duplicate them and turn them into terrorists. But couldn't they already do that? The Skrulls have been here since 97. They've seen Captain Marvel. The Avengers have been in New York. The Avengers have been in the spotlight. Hawkeye's walking around New York going to Broadway shows all the time. It's not like they're super couldn't they just see them and do, if they wanted to do that, couldn't they have already done that by now? They've been here for 30 years.
I'm guessing so, in terms of, maybe they've got obviously, like people, I think somebody said, "Oh, if they just saw them on TV, could they not replicate them?" I'm not sure if that's how it works when they've got to physically see them in up like relative in a relative distance to them to be able to do that. But you're right in the fact that technically the Avengers are celebrities as well. They've appeared all over the planet and could easily be seen, but.
Yeah.
I think
it just felt weakish as an explanation to get around the comic differences. It was just, I don't know.
They would need their DNA if they actually wanted the powers. They could probably look like them, but if these are Avengers, right, they're always vigilant. So they would actually have to sneak in there and get some DNA, which we saw they got DNA.
Yeah, but you can make them terrorists. You could shapeshift into Captain America and just go stab some people on the sidewalk. You don't need their powers. You could still make them terrorists just by taking their image on, but
do you have to shapeshift right in front of them, or do you see their image and do it later? Because if you shapeshift right in front of them, there's going to be two Captain Americas standing right in front of each other.
Well, you just do it from an alley. You just poke your head out, see him shapeshift, duck
it
back.
Depends on their skill level. Right?
I mean, it's not as easy as it seems, though.
Yeah, I know. It just, I guess maybe it's logical. It just felt like not the best explanation as to why because I know the Avengers won't be in it. I get it. Yeah. I just kind of was hoping for something more. But
maybe just don't talk about them. We get it.
Yeah, that works.
We all understand.
But you have to, because you'd be like, why didn't anybody bring up the Avengers and calling them in for this threat? So
no, you have to. And I also think they're building up to us seeing our roster of Avengers. I think in the finale, we're going to see, just like they ended Civil War with Captain America's new little team of Avengers, this has to be its secret invasions, right? He's building super skrulls. Did you notice the DNA, Groot, Cole Obsidian?
We're going to be getting
the Frost
in a minute.
Okay, that's for sure. We'll get onto that. But they're building a super powered Skrull army. Like the Skrulls are already a threat as it is. So who's going to stop them once they have powers of Groot and all that? Like the event, we're going to have a lineup by the end of the Shang-Chi, maybe Moon Knight, Hawkeye, the new guys, Kate Bishop, Miss Marvel. You know what I mean? All the people who are kind of operating on Earth, they've been introducing.
She-Hulk?
Yeah, She-Hulk, Daredevil, Punisher.
I'm not sure we'll get that at the end of the series.
Spider-Man. No, I think we'll get a roster, a tentative roster.
But I guess I agree with just the fact that it was a weak excuse for not bringing the Avengers into it. But could you not sit down on any individual person's MCU film and go, why didn't they call the rest of the Avengers in, or why didn't they call their friends in?
No, you're right.
I mean, we get it a bit in the Flash movie where like Batman and Wonder Woman and everything show up together, and that's kind of like how it should be. Because, like, especially in Winter Soldier, something like that, why the hell didn't the rest of them show up to help out with that? Yeah, like
Dark World, like all of those massive cataclysmic things happening on Earth in a major city. Yeah,
if you start looking at that, it falls apart because you can call them for any individual film and go, "Where the fuck were you guys? Why weren't you here helping us out? You are an asshole. Piss off! I don't want to see you ever again."
Selfish.
But in this episode, then we sort of. Just to backtrack a little bit before sort of joining two scenes together, Gravik returns to New Skrullos and he gets a standing ovation from the rest of the Skrulls in there. It looks like Guy's maybe feeling a bit left out, and she follows Pagan, the number 2 guy, into the sort of old reactor room where he chats with 2 scientists, the Daltons, who seem to be working on this sort of big machine that we sort of get a little glimpse of. And then we, jump forward after the sort of Rhodey and Fury scene. We see Guy then sitting down at what seems to be a very old 90s computer, to be fair, or early 2000s computer. Does a bit of quick research to see who this particular woman is. There was an interesting point where it said that her pod number was something like pod 19. So maybe they've got like the real scientist in one of the pods, and she's again just being imitated by this particular woman. But this is where we see the big thing about, she's looking at what she's doing, and we see that they've got DNA from Groot, the Frost Beast that we saw in the Dark World that ended up on Earth, Cole Obsidian's hand that got chopped off in Infinity War, and an Extremis soldier from Iron Man 3. As we know, they're clearly going down the route of creating a Super Skrull, because we did even see a glimpse in the trailer of a scene where Gravik extends his arm out like Groot. So we know they're going to go down that path and try and imbue. This is obviously what the machine is that they're building to try and imbue the DNA into a Skrull to give them superpowers. It's a nice little Easter eggs for everyone to see. Obviously, those DNA bits in there. Even if some people were like, "What the hell's a Frost Beast?" And you have to kind of remind them that was a very random sort of after credit scene from from the
Yeah.
dark world of it
Yeah.
chasing a butterfly.
Yeah.
But
So
how
with
are you
the
guys feeling about the fact that we've been given a hint now to where the end game is going for Gravik and what he's trying to do for the Skrulls?
Have you guys seen the theory that, I mean, those are pretty much the Fantastic Four things, right? So what if that evolves into the Fantastic Four being created from the Super Skrull? Have you seen that one? Because that's kind of that.
It was Groot was like Mr. Fantastic, Constantine was like the Thing.
Yes.
Extremis.
It's all flame.
Extremis,
like
Human Torch.
But
Frost
I don't know about the
Giant.
Frost Giant Sue
Well,
Storm.
think about Loki's use of magic and like force fields and illusions and stuff like that. Like that's a
But he learned that
Jotunheim.
from his mom. That's not a
But
Jotunheim thing.
what other
he learned all his
Asgardian-
sorcery from his mom
We haven't seen
So it wouldn't be
another
a Frost
Asgardian
Beast.
do that though. So I wonder if that has anything
because
to do with
his
it,
mom's not Asgardian either. So she taught him all that. But that I'm just saying that the sorcery from Loki doesn't come from the Jotunheim. That comes straight from Freya.
comes from mom. That's a deep. Yeah, I actually didn't know that.
They got
about
3 out of
Freya.
4.
That's cool.
Yeah.
They're still most
Yeah.
of the way there, but I think it's more of a link,
But
an Easter egg to the comics, maybe rather than saying they're going to go down
For
that
sure.
route. That's how I was thinking about
Just
it anyway.
introduces the Fantastic Four on the finale.
It was awesome though. Super exciting to see that. And again, because we all theorized the Super Skrull after he shoots his arm out in the trailer. It's like, okay, Super Skrull right there. Skrulls can't do that. So they're obviously, but we got it in episode 2, which is cool. I'm glad we're already getting the hints towards it. It was nothing but pure excitement for me. It felt like a phase 3 kind of Easter egg reveal. I feel like we haven't really gotten the best Easter eggs when it comes to seeing like something on the screen or like, from what is it? I think it's from Winter Soldier where he goes, Doctor Strange, a kid from Bronx, he's
Bruce Banner.
Sitwell's listing off all of the Bruce Banner, listing off all those Easter eggs. So it kind of felt like a return to form with the Easter eggs there. So I love that little clip.
Love, what are you thinking about this particular little scene? He's not listening to me. Caleb, what did you reckon to this scene with the little hints in there of the DNA?
I definitely see. I think they left things out. They have DNA to more different. Maybe Captain Marvel. I'm thinking there
As
could be a Captain.
Guardians.
Yeah, as anything. Because
It's true, they could have more. Sorry.
and if like what JD said, damage control. They've been around, taking up everything from different wars. They could have the DNA of any of the heroes we've seen before.
Spider-Man.
Yeah.
I think that's a good shout, to be fair. We don't know the extent of, obviously, where they've infiltrated, what they've got, and what may still be revealed. I think... What do you think about Gaia, though, in this sort of almost like a double agent role now? Because she was shook in the first episode after finding out that her mum had been... her mum had passed away or been killed, and Talos claiming it was by Gravik and his crew. So she seems to be doing this sort of double agent thing now, where we see a bit later on as well that she calls the police and gives out the details to the safe house.
Right.
And she was obviously giving information to Fury and Talos in the first episode. Where do you think she sits then as this double agent? And is Gravik maybe sort of picking up on that already? We see from the little looks he gives her, the little side eyes, that he's maybe sort of onto her a little bit, and he's doing the things that she thinks he would do. But then he's like, I'm onto you already. What do you reckon?
I can't tell if she's good or bad. I can't tell. What do you think?
She's definitely not in... Gravik doesn't tell her as much as she thinks she does. She thinks she's like his right-hand woman, but she doesn't mean that much to him. She's expendable to him, and I think she's going to learn that soon. And being Talos' daughter, she's always going to have that connection, and he's going to never be able to fully trust her because of that.
Yeah. I think the fact that she doesn't know about that Super Skrull thing says that, he doesn't trust her. So he already suspects her. He's using her as much as he can, probably in the long run to have an edge up on Talos. I have your daughter, whether it's, threatening her life or whether it's having her do something, he's keeping her around as leverage against Talos. But yeah, I think she's very confused, obviously, because she kind of lied about the information last episode and kind of got Maria Hill killed. Well, they got them screwed up. The whole backpack thing ended up being fakes that she said she was going to paint. But then she's finding this stuff out about the super scrolls. So I think she's very conflicted. She'll probably turn back to her dad's side by the end of this, and Gravik's going to use her in some horrifying way.
Do we think there's any possibility that her mum, Soren, is still alive? Someone put this theory to me that they think that maybe she is still alive, that she wasn't sort of completely killed, and that her death was maybe faked and she's being kept prisoner by Gravik.
I don't think
like it.
Talos was completely telling the truth to her in the first episode. I think it was too simple of a, he's like, Gravik killed her, like you can't trust him because of that. I don't think that is exactly what happened.
Yeah, she could still be alive. It's been very vague. I mean, he told Fury about it too, that he lost her. And I don't know if he'd have really an ulterior motive for telling Fury that, but it totally could have been faked. I wouldn't put it past them. Yeah, another piece of leverage for Gravik.
And it happened off screen too. Why would
Right.
they do that? She was Maria Hill too. She was like a pretty significant Skrull.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that Talos has lied to Fury about her being alive, but he's been shady about her death and maybe what he thinks has happened to her. But I think that maybe, he wasn't there at the moment she actually fully died, and he just thinks that she's dead, and Gravik is maybe keeping her holed up somewhere, and will use her as leverage later on. Like you said, Lovey, but killed off screen doesn't really make sense for someone that is significant to other characters on the show. Those kind of things, they tend to maybe, because if you're playing a Skrull, you can always replace that actress with someone else.
There's no schedule conflicts here. You can make it work.
Necessarily makes sense to have them killed off screen for an impact of making Gaia turn back, perhaps. But so we move on to the episode to Sonia going to the butcher shop to do an interrogation on Brogan. I love Olivia Colman in this role. I think she's having a lot of fun with this sort of like chipper, happy-go-lucky spy woman that's quite brutal, it turns out. She's interrogating him. She chops off his fingers straight away to double check that he's a Skrull, which he is. And then she gives him this injection that basically makes his blood boil. Gravik turns up with his goons and she escapes. But they managed to free Brogan. This is where obviously Gaia also called the local police about their safe house where they were going to take him, and to maybe obviously make Gravik think that he'd given some info up to Sonia. And obviously on the way back to New Skrullos, they basically kill him. Like I said, I've loved seeing Olivia Colman in this little role in the 2 episodes that we've had so far. And interesting that they've developed, maybe not surprising, they've developed this serum that they can inject into people and make their blood boil. Maybe a bit similar to the extremis stuff as well. That used to make people explode, and maybe they've managed to manufacture it to a point where they can use it to a certain point without it making people explode or turning them into extremis soldiers. So she's, like I said, it's happy-go-lucky but brutal British spy. What are you thinking of Sonia and her role to play in this series?
Full Umbridge vibes from Harry Potter, Professor Umbridge.
Right.
Like, woof.
She should have just used truth serum. That always works.
I thought that's what she was doing.
Just ask Luis. No, she was good. She was good. Yeah, she definitely gave a creepy but very intimidating vibe. I mean, she called out the escape hatch. Where's your escape hatch? It's right there. Oh, perfect. Okay, I just got a hunch. It was pretty conveniently placed escape hatch, but obviously it was just to signify how many steps ahead she is ahead of everything, how clever she really is. And yeah, it's a very interesting character. Looking forward to her going through.
But whose side is she on?
I was just going to ask that too.
Because she's not on Fury's.
She's a third party.
She's not. But she has a green scarf or a green shirt she wears. So she could be a Skrull. There's a lot of people who have green have these kind of green
It has been pointed out that everyone wearing green in some way is pretty much a Skrull. So maybe she's part of the Emperor's colony of Skrulls.
Right.
And so she's not she's not aligned with Fury, she's not aligned with Gravik Skrulls, she's a third party Skrull that's monitoring everything and seeing how they're getting along.
Yeah.
I like that.
as soon as she cut off that dude's finger, I was like, oh, Marvel's actually going there with this. Okay. Because you
Right.
hear like Daredevil might be rated R, a bunch of Deadpool 3s coming out, and now they're starting to show blood and cutting off limbs. It's like, okay, maybe they've listened to us the past 5 years. It hasn't been amazing for the like adult audience, really, because they've always done a pretty good job at making it good for both, but not really the last 4 years, in my opinion, with the exception of a couple movies. Looks like they're going there now.
I think they must have gotten away with that because it turned into an alien limb once it got chopped off. Like, 'cause I was like, dang, you don't really see the full thing happening in an MCU thing where you just see it, the limb cut off or the extremity cut off, and like that you knew she meant business. Also loved fake Gary Oldman, the one who couldn't get the job done before. I thought it was Gary Oldman at first. I was like, no way did they get Gary Oldman in this show and we didn't hear about it. And I was like, oh no, it's just his Gary Oldman from Wish.
I mean, there was him and his goons, to be fair, is something I'm going to call out in this particular scene, because I don't know why random goons that they have doing this are always very stereotypical. Like this guy stood in front of her and he's like holding his dick and then going, "Get me a sausage." It's just like, why was that even needed? And then the dude that's out there who's about to obviously chop down on the sausage and he's shot by Gravik. Crashes back against the wall, makes a bunch of noise with the shelves crashing behind him, but then Gravik tries to sneak through the door holding the bell, as if they weren't alerted to the fucking shot and the shelves crashing down behind them, but the bell was going to alert them more than that.
Yeah, the high caliber round drilling the wall and then the guy falling and knocking down stuff. Catch that bell.
It was just Kevin bringing his chili into the office. That's all it was.
Oh my God.
Two unnecessary things in that scene is like him stopping the bell from going off when you've already made noise, and the other random goon just like feeling up himself and then saying, "Get me a sausage now."
Just so over the top.
It's just, I don't know why they're always make them so stereotypical when the rest of the writing is so good in this show so far.
Right.
But it just wasn't needed. I'm just like, I've watched it twice now, and both I'm like, why? Why have you done that? Don't need to see him fiddling with himself and then asking for a sausage. It's just not what I expected.
It's so extra.
This isn't the tracksuit mafia.
That's what it felt like. It felt like a variation. It's all the henchmen of these MCU series are just so ridiculous.
Oh, it was very random, but yeah, not needed at all. So yeah, obviously, Brogan guy's taken away. He's killed by Pagon, and we get Gravik giving that side eye again. What do you mean wrongly? He gave up information. He may not have given him the safe house, but he still told Sonya.
Did give up information.
He did give information. Okay. What did he tell her exactly?
He told her the people that were running the science program and the machine. Yeah.
Oh,
that's
Super
right.
Project.
That's
Even Gaia
right.
doesn't know about that. That's
he
bigger than a
gave
lot
him
of
the
stuff.
big information.
Yeah,
that's
true.
justified. That dude deserved to be killed. Let's face it.
Okay, that's true. That's my bad.
Then at the end of this episode, then I'm assuming Nick Fury's back in America because obviously Rhodey had said that he had a plane sorted out for him.
Right.
But we don't know what country's in. He just goes into a garage, gets his car, drives to this really nice home. He walks through the front door. We see a skrull in the kitchen chopping up some veggies. And then when he turns the corner, she's turned into what apparently is Nick Fury's wife. Technically, he's told us in the MCU before that he had a wife, but we didn't believe him.
Wow.
Winter Soldier, when he's shot and he's talking to Captain America, he's like, "My wife kicked me out." He's like, "I didn't even know you were married." He's like, "Not many people do." And obviously, maybe if he was keeping that quiet, and he doesn't wear the wedding ring out when he's out on missions to make sure that no one thinks he's married, so they can't go and hunt down someone that he cares about.
Smart.
But I think the big question here is, does he know that his wife's a Skrull? If he doesn't, is this an infiltration by Gravik's group or the third party Skrulls, or what's going on here? Was she on the spaceship with him for the last few years when he's been disappeared, or has she been waiting for him to come back to Earth? A lot of questions about the scene thrown out there now. What do you reckon?
I think he does, because that was the same lady from the first scene. She had the same exact voice as the one who introduced Gravik to Fury.
Vara,
so I'm curious if they reveal that, but it was the same exact voice.
It did look like her a bit as well, I thought, just aged a little bit. But
and what's hilarious is I didn't even see her as a Skrull. I must have missed that part of the scene. I didn't know they even revealed that. So I was just thinking that's the exact voice, and some theories are out there about that they think that could be the first scroll woman we see who introduces Gravik, and it totally does. If you watch the first scene again, it sounds exactly like her when she's talking to Fury there. But I didn't even consider that he wouldn't know. But I think he does. I'm gonna go with I think he knows that she's a scroll.
Yeah, I might have been changing a diaper at that moment. I'd never even considered her as a scroll ever. But that's crazy. But if he knows, well, if he knows, that's fine. But if he doesn't know, that would be crazy. Married her, lived with her this whole time.
Well, he did the forehead nuzzle with her too, and all the scrolls do that. They put their foreheads against each other and they do this. They did that in Captain Marvel. They did that at the beginning of this episode, and Fury and his wife did that in this last scene. So that was another thing. So I think he knows, but man, if he doesn't, that's a. Whew.
It would be a bit of an even bigger twist if, first of all, we've got the reveal that he's got a wife, much in the same way that we revealed that Hawkeye had a family in Age of Ultron. But then the fact that, if he doesn't know it's a Skrull, then that's even worse. So, and the fact that he's then obviously doing this whole thing of not wearing a wedding ring out to protect her, but she's already been got. So
right. Brutal.
But how are we rating this episode overall, guys? 2 episodes so far, obviously, we've still got a bit of a ways to go in the series. But I think this is... I know that you guys, after last week's episode, you were saying could this be a return to form for Marvel because they've been a little bit maybe down recently on a lot of their projects compared to obviously what we've had before. But I think so far this show's been off to a really good start. It's been impactful, it's been emotional, and it's going to be a roller coaster for the rest of it. What do you guys reckon?
Well, this seems back to form to me. So, I'm in. I'm just going to judge them on their last project, and it looks like they're really going back towards that adult audience kind of feel, that more mature thing with us having, being more connected to it. So that's a big win for me. I'm looking forward to it because we just have a lot of dark projects coming out after that might even be rated R. Daredevil, Echo. So yeah, they might be getting back to form. I'm more confident than I was before Secret Invasions for sure.
Yeah. I'm actually surprised how low the viewership is. I know there's not like a main hero in it, but it's like second lowest to Miss Marvel so far, which is not great. But I'm always hopeful for the future. I'm an optimistic guy, so I do think that with the projects that we know are coming soon, things are going to be good again.
Dude, yeah, so far so good. I loved this episode. I liked it more than the pilot. I really, really enjoyed watching this episode. Probably gonna rewatch it tonight. But it's been encouraging so far. I'm not giving them the win yet. We got to see. It's only been 2 episodes. They need to finish this thing. They need to bring it home. But so far, it's been a great start. We've got the grounded stuff. We've got Gravik, who is a good villain so far. I really like him in that end action scene where he's throwing dudes on meat hooks and just absolutely. That was some of the most savage, like, close combat fight we've seen in MCU too. Like, he was stabbing people in the throat. It was intense. But I like him as a villain, and I like this whole redemption arc for Fury coming in. So they've set me up for something that I'm very excited for. So I hope they bring it home.
The question that I'll put to you guys that I did when I previewed this show about a month or so ago was that obviously Samuel Jackson themselves is getting a bit older. We're probably not going to see too much more Nick Fury in the MCU anyway. Mm-hmm. Does it maybe spoil it a little bit that because we've seen the trailer for the Marvels and we know that Nick Fury's in that, does it maybe spoil it a little bit that we know he gets through this unscathed? Because this potentially could have been the series that Nick Fury stops the Skrull threat, but he does himself make that big sacrifice at the end of it and leaves his character behind in the MCU. But we know that he's going to be in the Marvels, and he basically recovers the situation because he's back on Saber, back in space. And he's helping them out. So has that maybe spoiled the ending a little bit for us because we know he's going to get through this without any adverse effects and he basically becomes the old Nick Fury again? Or was that to be expected?
Who knows with the timeline these days, though? Like, Miss Marvels could happen before Secret Invasion.
The way they've been going, yeah.
Yeah.
I guess it could.
But we also don't know. We don't know if the Skrulls will be fully defeated. What if they're going to be an overarching threat for another year or so? So the Marvels is just an episode in between all that.
The only reason I bring it up is we see him recovered because the whole thing about Nick Fury in this series is that it's taken its toll on him from the blood and everything like that. He's not wearing the eye patch anymore because this is a Nick Fury that doesn't care as much anymore. He's deliberately been on the space station because he lost faith in what was going on. But in the Marvels trailer, we see him. He's back in the leather jacket. He's back with the eye patch on. He seems to be back to the Nick Fury of old. So that's why I was like, is that kind of a spoiler that, we're expecting him to get back to the Nick Fury of old in the series, because we do see in the trailer that he's got the long leather coat on with the eye patch at some point, walking into a room to face Gravik.
Yeah.
But it was maybe a bit of a spoiler. Like, do you think maybe then Nick Fury's story might come to an end in, say, something like Kang Dynasty? Because Kang's going to have to come in and be a badass and kill off a few people.
Yes.
Whether we get new iterations of them in then Secret Wars, who knows? But do you think someone like Nick Fury, like maybe Hawkeye, is primed to be killed off in something like Kang Dynasty to show Kang's power?
For sure.
Yeah.
People need to die.
Yes.
People
Yes.
need to die in Kang
There
Dynasty.
needs to be the Avengers. Yeah. Colson has to have that death, all that stuff.
Mhm. Well, and we need
So,
to
but-
take it seriously. Like,
Yeah.
we do. But,
But I think he'll go out swinging. I think we'll have him leading the Avengers at least one more time, because just to see the full group again under Nick Fury's master plan one more time. And then I think you're right. He will do a sacrifice death. He's getting old. And what a way to bring the Avengers together to finish Kang or whoever the villain is whenever he dies.
to bring it back to your question, though, yeah, that is a bummer for me. I wish I didn't see that in the Marvels trailer, because we don't know what timeline it is, but it takes away that that those stakes were there for this Nick Fury comeback. We weren't sure how this was going to wrap up, but again, it doesn't 100% mean it, but it does seem kind of weird. It kind of takes away that. Good Lord, I'm having a really tough time spitting this sentence out. But yeah, it takes away a bit from the suspense of this season and his arc, and I wish I didn't see that in that trailer.
Yeah, the levity. I agree. I didn't think of that, but he's totally full form. Eye patch. Yeah, he's not going to die. Whereas, like, you really kind of feel like he's in big trouble right now, but it's kind of alleviated.
So let's. Sorry, Caleb, did you have something to add on that one?
I just still don't see the Skrull story being solved in this one season. Maybe he's going to be back to form, but it's not a complete spoiler on the Skrull story in him. He's going to come back to form. I mean, it's kind of obvious. He's going to come back to form, like penultimate episode, as JD likes to call it.
He could come back and die, though.
I don't. No, I don't see them killing him in Secret Invasion season 1. Nick Fury's
going
to
be multiple seasons.
You don't think so?
I don't think so either.
No,
They
I
haven't
don't
said
think so.
anything about that. No, I don't
Maybe
think
they'll do
they
a
are.
movie, like a Skrull movie, then, or like Captain Marvel 3 with that kind of stuff
I
going
could
on.
see a
I personally
Kree
think they're
Skrull
going to
war.
end it.
You
Well,
think
they
it's-
already did that. They've actually been dropping a lot of hints about the Kree Skrull War in Spider-Man and in this thing. But I think the
They
Skrull
have,
thing is
yeah.
going to die off. But there will be stragglers. Not every single Skrull will be eliminated. But I think the main Skrull conflict, I think they're going to wrap it up in this season.
Could you imagine if they mix a Kree Skrull war into this, like a full on like Kree invades Earth to wipe out the rest of the Skrulls? That'd be crazy.
Be wild.
Might be something
do it, but
we
it'd be
get in the
wild.
future. Say a Captain Marvel 3, because
True.
they've got to wrap up what happened with the Kree with Carol Danvers at some point.
Mhm.
I feel like they left it untouched because she sent Jude Law, whatever his name was in that film, back to obviously the Kree, and so they're just still out there. So maybe the initial threat of Gravik and the Council are wiped out in this particular series, but the Skrulls are still there. And then maybe Captain Marvel 3, we get the Kree turning up and going, hey, we want to finish the job. And Earth is caught in the middle of it. And Carol Danvers has to sit in there and help.
We've been talking
like
about it for years that we think in Secret Invasion specifically, Noel could show up. He's the king of symbiotes, and it seems like it just ties directly into the story. No, it's a running joke. Noel's going to show up in everything.
Yeah. We just theorize. It's pretty much Eric from New Rockstar and his Mephisto confirmed thing, but for some reason we're just really stuck on Noel making a cameo appearance in one of these things.
In our defense,
We won't hold
Noel for God or God of Thunder. Love and Thunder.
That's what it was.
That's
Love
why
and
it
Thunder.
started.
That's what
Right,
sparked
because of the
it.
Necro Sword. He's the creator of the
Yeah.
Necro Sword.
So speaking of other projects, then let's end the episode chatting about obviously we know there's a hell of a lot of stuff to come over the next 3-4 years, even if things have been delayed by a year or two because of the writer's strike and other things that are going on. We've still got a hell of a lot of projects to go through phase 5 and still unconfirmed projects, I think, for phase 6 and 7 running up to those 2 big Avengers films. But let's start off with, out of what we know is coming up, what is your least anticipated upcoming Marvel project? The thing that you don't really give that much of a crap about. You're going to watch it because it's the MCU stuff, and you've got to stay in the know as we do as podcasters. But you could take it or leave it if you weren't having to watch it for reviewing stuff.
Oh, I have one real quick if you want me to tee off.
Go, hit me with
I
it.
think all three of us are going to agree on Agatha.
Not Caleb. Caleb's hyped for Agatha.
Dude, I don't think it's going to be bad.
I think
I don't
it'll be
care about the
interesting.
Agatha show at all. I probably won't even watch it.
I'm not.
Wanda's
but
gonna
I'm looking
be in it,
forward to
though.
it.
Mephisto's in it too. No, that's Ironheart. Never mind. Yeah. Agatha is my answer. I'm not interested in that one at all.
Caleb, if you're looking forward to Agatha, have you got anything else that you think is trash and you're not bothered about?
I don't think it's going to be trash, but when it comes to like the hype surrounded about it, I'm not
Did you say
really
Daredevil?
that stoked
Swear to
on
God.
Thunderbolts.
Oh, okay.
Oh, really?
Hasn't seen Daredevil yet.
I was gonna freak out on you if you said Daredevil.
I actually thought about saying Daredevil just to piss you off, but
I
Let the-
would have kicked
let
you
the-
and
Yeah,
and the Marvels too. Probably, I don't think.
Not
I mean,
super stoked.
I
about
like
it,
Captain Marvel more than the average
Me too.
nerd, but
I'm actually quite
it-
looking forward to the Marvels. I actually quite enjoyed the Ms. Marvel TV series.
Okay.
Even though it's not necessarily aimed at I'm not the kind of audience it was necessarily maybe aimed at. But I still
Right.
find it quite refreshing, but different. There was some good lore in there, finding out new things. The bangle, is it connected to the 10 rings?
Yeah.
Which is are those then connected to Kang, as we saw similar in in the latest Ant-Man film Quantumania. We saw his sort of like in his city, some of the transportation rings looked a bit like the 10
Yes.
rings, and are they all? We've got that obviously teaser in Ms. Marvel that they're connected to the bangles are connected to the 10 rings, so maybe it's all linked together. I'm actually I'm not hyped for it, but I'm actually looking forward to watching it.
Yeah.
I'm happy to see a bit more Monica Rambeau as well, and
Yeah.
we see her fully powered up as well. So, but yeah, I'm on the floor with you guys on Agatha. I don't care about this character. We didn't need an extra TV series. Like, just let her sit in a mind warp state at the end of WandaVision, and that be it. Don't know what the hell Marvel are thinking about, and it's not even going to be set in the modern times, is it? I think it's like a prequel series or something.
Yeah, I think it's like the Pilgrim
Salem.
era.
Salem witch trials.
Yeah,
'Cause that's what the fans are crying out for, a bit of Salem witchcraft
Exactly.
in the MCU.
Right.
I just don't know who asked for it. And even Miss Marvel, like, I hated She-Hulk. I'm not going to get into that. But Miss Marvel had interesting lore in it, and it had a story to tell still, even if it wasn't aimed at me either, and it wasn't like my favorite show. I didn't rate it super high, but there was still good stuff to it. There was still good writing to it. There was cool lore that came out of it, like you said. But man, Agatha, I ain't nothing for it.
I can't. I mean, obviously, we hope it's going to be decent, and I obviously still will watch it. But I use the word dumpster fire more and more nowadays, and I get the feeling that this is going to be one of those that comes under that label for me. Unfortunately, don't want to prejudge it. Fingers crossed, it's really good and it's entertaining. It's something very different. But if it's not connected to the here and now of the MCU, I don't see why we need a show set 500 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, Wanda's going to be in it, at least the finale.
Well, not if it's in the Pilgrim era.
Well,
It'll
it'll
jump
jump
around.
around.
It'll jump around.
Yeah.
It'll jump around. Yeah.
I'd like an answer.
It should
to
have been
where
a special
Wanda is.
presentation, though.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, Werewolf at Night, highly slept on.
Oh
Like,
my
dude,
gosh,
Not
it.
talked about enough.
it was
Loved it.
amazing.
Really good.
Yeah.
Definitely. Sorry, it was just because you said special presentation. My mind jumped
Right.
to the fact that someone else had mentioned to me earlier this week that Werewolf by Night is highly slept upon. It's not talked about enough as one of the best projects that they've done in recent times. And we
Really
need
surprising.
more stuff like that as
Just-
like a little one-off
just
thing. 'Cause
rewatch it.
assuming we're going to see
Yeah.
see these characters again, it's not just a one-off and done for them, is it? So
Yeah.
we've talked about our least anticipated upcoming projects. Then let's go to what our most is. The one thing you're looking forward to more than anything else over the next sort of 3, 4 years. What is it? Let's start with Caleb. Give me your one.
I think I'm gonna have to go with Deadpool. Like
Oof.
they're bringing him into the MCU for the first time, and just all the rumors and leaks that are coming out about that movie are insane. Like we obviously Wolverine, Hugh Jackman is confirmed, and just there's I don't know how deep you want to get into rumors on this podcast, but there's a lot of stuff going on, and I think it's just gonna and it's a perfect kind of flashpoint for the MCU where they can just kind of have fun and reset things and go forward for Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars after that, because it's the start of it's the end of Phase 5. So after that, it's game on for Secret Wars.
I mean, I rate the rumours that go on associated with the cameos in this film to that of, say, Multiverse of Madness. Because there was all sorts of rumours going around that we were going to get Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man and he was going to be killed off by Wanda and things like that. So you've got to take, I think, a few of the rumours with a pinch of salt.
Oh, of course, of course.
But knowing it's going to be a multiversal film still opens the doorway to, I think, like obviously the most recent rumor being that Ben Affleck's Daredevil is going to make an appearance because he's been supposedly spotted on set. But yeah, I think it's a great one. You said that it's the end of Phase 5, isn't Thunderbolts the end of Phase 5?
Changed it.
They
most
switched
recently they had had Blade and Deadpool, but Blade's who knows if that'll ever happen. But yeah, the last I read
it was supposed to be the
recently
end of
was
this phase.
Deadpool 3, expected to close out Phase 5.
Because they've moved Deadpool up until, what was it, like May next year or something?
6 months. That's
Oh,
true.
So
That's
Thunderbolts
true.
doesn't come out to the end of next year, isn't it? So
You're right. Yeah,
I still think
they moved it up a
Thunderbolts is
few
gonna be
weeks
the
ago.
end.
You're
It was
right.
supposed to
They changed it. Son of a gun.
close out Phase 4, and they're saying it's going to be the Avengers movie of Phase 4 because it's going to be a big team of rogues and the whatever. But I'm
Phase
excited
4?
about Thunderbolts because I love.
That's already over.
Say what?
Yeah, Phase 4 we're already.
Sorry,
We're already in Phase 5.
Whatever this
Yeah.
phase is, okay. But the Warren Ellis
Yeah,
Phase
Phase 5.
5,
Thunderbolts,
yes.
Yeah.
Norman Osborn, Dark Avengers. I love that stuff. I wonder, Andy, have you read that stuff? Because I kind of think that's where they might be going. I'm hoping. Not with Norman Osborn
I've read a little bit
specifically.
of it, yeah.
Okay.
It's going to be interesting to see to see what we put together with them. But JD, what's going to be your most anticipated upcoming project?
So for Marvel specifically, or can I branch out?
Yeah,
Okay, so Marvel is Daredevil.
Marvel specifically.
Daredevil for sure is my most anticipated coming up here because I love that Netflix show, and it sounds like we obviously have Matt Murdock. I mean, Charlie Cox back, and it might be rated R. That's crazy. I loved Kingpin so much. Kingpin's back, and yeah, I'm really excited for Daredevil. 18 episodes, dude.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's wild.
I was chatting to, I can't remember if it was my guest last week or maybe Lee from Lights Camera Rant when we were reviewing this. So I'll ask your guys' opinion on it. Obviously, the whole point of with the fact that Daredevil's going to be 18 episodes long, and if they do an episode per week, that means we're going to be reviewing it for 4.5 months. So would you prefer that they're doing an episode a week with this and we can review it for so long, or would you prefer they dropped, say, 2 episodes a week? So did it because they said that it's going to be about 30 minutes an episode. So would you think it's better if they drop, say, 2 episodes a week, or would you prefer the way that they go of Echo, where they're going to drop all the episodes in one go? Which format would you think is best for something that's going to be the longest MCU show that we've ever had?
As a fan, I want all 18 episodes a month early. But from a business perspective, I feel like you just carry out the conversation the more you put it out. So they probably want to keep the conversation running, go week by week. But yeah, no, I'm really excited for Echo to binge the whole thing. I would love to binge the whole 18 episodes of Daredevil. But that's not going to happen.
It's going to be exciting. I'm obviously super excited for the Punisher. We know John Berthel's coming back to play him as well.
Yes.
So Kingpin, Punisher, and Daredevil together. It's going to be amazing.
I don't think I want them all dropped at the same time. And I'll tell you why. Because I've on social media for our podcast page, and constant spoilers. Wednesday morning, Secret Invasion, Maria Hill's death was spoiled to me as soon as I opened up Instagram at 9 a.m. on Wednesday. It was like, it just came out. So I don't want people dropping stuff from episode 18 for weeks on end, because if I can't binge 18 episodes, I'm going to get it spoiled. So selfishly, I would rather them maybe do 2 at a time, or at least portion it, maybe part 1 at a time, whatever the case may be. But it is pretty wild thinking about how long that's going to drag on. Well, I'm not going to say drag on. How long that's going to last? One episode a week, but yeah.
Because there's going to be filler episodes. Like, you can't have 18 episodes of just bangers, action, climax.
You've never watched Daredevil before,
dude.
No, you're probably right. Yeah.
No, they have 18
So I
episodes
would like to
for a
see
reason.
them at least. Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, we'll see. They should at least do like a 3-episode release to start, and then maybe do one a week after that. Let people kind of dig in first.
That's
but
fair.
still, 15 weeks. That's they got to move on to the next thing in the phase. Can't have one show going on for 3.5 months.
Yeah.
But just because it's the conversation I did have last week from a podcaster's point of view, like you mentioned, David, even if as podcasters we're trying to watch stuff as quickly as possible when it comes out to make sure it's not spoiled for us, is it going to be difficult to review something like Echo where it does all drop at once? How quickly can you sit and binge all the episodes?
Right.
How long do you wait before you start putting spoilers on your page for your viewers and your listeners? How quickly do you review it? Do you give people a chance to watch it? Do you give them a week? Do you give them a month before you start reviewing it? It's a difficult one for us, and I think I've given it like 2 weeks before I sit down on my schedule that I've got planned out, because we've got a busy schedule for the rest of the year. Let's face it. I mean, we've got this running through. We get a little bit of a break in August. I think that's where I've got like The Witcher Part 1 and 2 put into my schedule to review with Blue Beetle, and then we roll on to Ahsoka. Ahsoka rolls into Loki. There's like 2 or 3 weeks when they cross over. But I think I said I've even got 1 week where I scheduled in the same episode to review an episode of Ahsoka, Loki, and Kraven the Hunter. So
that's wild.
I know it's going to be so much more. It's going to be like a 4-hour episode. But, but where do you guys stand as podcasters on the whole thing of like, when they do drop a series all at once, like Netflix does, versus having a weekly episodic show where you get a chance to sit down, watch it a couple of times, do your podcast for it? Where do you guys stand on the difference between the two?
Yeah, I'm with you there. As a podcaster, if we weren't doing this, I'd be way more down for it to all drop at once. But just thinking about, like you said, great points, trying to schedule all of that out and plan to release it without getting stuff spoiled, it stresses me out thinking about it. So
because I'm just trying to think of obviously the listeners, don't it? Like when you start posting some spoilers, do you break it up into chunks? Which way to go about it? And then it's just like I'm just gonna have to do it in one go, really. And give everyone a little bit of time to watch it, because not everyone's going to binge it the first day or even necessarily the first week. So that's why personally I've been like, I'll give it a couple of weeks, and then because obviously I know some people that obviously do film reviews where they review the film the same day it's come out. Them and their guests will go and watch it that morning, and they're reviewing it that evening straight away. I mean, it's just the way I do it. I try and give a week in between the films come out, give people the chance to see it. Otherwise, they might not come and listen, and they'll forget about there's an episode that's reviewed it.
Yeah, true.
Right.
Yeah.
But either way, we've got a lot of exciting things coming up. I mean, I am super hyped for Daredevil. It's going to be obviously one of the things I'm definitely looking forward to. I think I can't wait really to get to Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars. I'm very impatient about getting to that, simply because, and obviously maybe some controversy with Jonathan Majors, but say he stays on as Kang. I've loved what he's done with Kang so far, and He Who Remains. I can't wait to see what he's going to do with that moving forward. And as we mentioned, there's going to have to be some deaths in Kang Dynasty. So I'm really hoping to see some big hitting things come out of those films. And they're going to be, they're Avengers films. We won't have had an Avengers film since 2019 at that point. So it's going to be big hitting. I'm excited for the future, because we know we're getting X-Men, we're going to get Fantastic Four.
Oh.
It's breathing new life into what people have said is maybe a bit of a tired Marvel sort of roster at this point.
Yeah, I think they have one more chance to capture the phase 1 through 3 magic, and that's with X-Men, Fantastic Four, and a big climax for that. So we could have a good 10 years of amazing Marvel stuff. We'll see.
Absolutely. Guys, I really, really appreciate you coming on this week and having a really nice long chat through about the MCU and obviously Secret Invasion. It's going to be interesting to see how the series folds out. Tell everyone at home exactly where we can find you on social media.
Yeah, you can find us Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, all at Why So Sidious Pod. We're on there pretty consistently. Got polls, got a bunch of listener questions, all that stuff, and we got an ongoing box office draft going. If you we put that on our social media as well. But all three of us, we had a draft at the start of the year, and we drafted all the box office movies, or top 5 box office movies each coming out, and whoever has the highest total wins $1,000, and the other 2 have to get tattoos on their foreheads. So it's a pretty low key, low stakes game we got going on over there. But yeah, you can follow it all along, all throughout the year over on our social media, and send in requests, whatever you want to do. Yeah, we're hoping to get more people interacting with us every day.
I mean, you guys seem to have a lot of low stakes games going on, whether it's tattoos on the forehead or people leaving the podcast if they're not right. So
we're just a pretty chill group of guys,
Yeah, not taking it too seriously at all. It's fine. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. I'll be back next week when I'll be talking, obviously, Episode 3, Secret Invasion, and I'll probably be having a bit of a chat about the new Indiana Jones film as well. So tune in then. Until next time, everyone, take care.